Okay, so this time for Technique Tuesday, we're going to talk about using the texture mats. We have quite a few different rubber and plastic mats that all have textures on them. So this one's got wood, this one has swirls, this is like little bumps, kind of make like polka dots. This one has like a plaid appearance. It's kind of hard to see because these are clear. See, but there's a whole different variety of texture mats. These are the smaller ones. These are about the size of a plain sheet of paper. We also have, for larger things, 2 of these great big ones. I'm not even sure the camera can get them, they're so big. So this one's quite large. These are probably, I don't know, 24 inches by 24 inches. They're pretty big. So this one looks like pebbles, or some people might say it looks like a lizard skin. And then this one is circles and polka dots. So I'm going to use this larger one. What I've done is I've rolled out my slab and I've cut it to the shape that I need it to be. I'm going to be making a mug. Now, when you're using the texture mats, you want to use the texture mat while your project is in slab form. You wouldn't make the mug and then try to apply the texture to the outside. It would not go very well. You need to be able to press into a flat surface. So I've got my slab out here, and what I need is I don't want the mat to stick to the slab. That's going to make my life a lot harder. So what I'll do is I'm going to take, where's the label? This is cornstarch. And I'm going to take this cornstarch and I'm going to use, you can use a sponge, or you can use a big paintbrush, a large size paintbrush. And the first thing I need to do is decide which side of the texture mat I want to use, because each side is going to give you a different result. For example, if I were using this pebble one, this side, if I were to put this side down on the clay, the pebble portions would be indented and the portions between the pebbles would be raised. If I were to use the other side, it's going to be the opposite. So you have to decide which side of the mat you want to use. Alright, so what I'll do is I'm going to take my cornstarch and I'm going to brush cornstarch on the area that I plan on stamping. You don't want big clumps of cornstarch on there. This stuff is very powdery. And what this will do is it will help keep the clay from sticking to the mat. If you've ever made cookies at Christmas time where you use flour or bread, when you're making bread, you would put flour on the cutting board to help it keep from sticking. This is the same idea. I'm going to take any excess and kind of shake it off over here away from my slab. Alright, so now that that is in place, I'm going to make sure to cover up, put the lid on the cornstarch, because if it spills, it's going to make a great big mess. So cover that up, I won't need it again. And I'm going to put my mat down, cornstarch side down. And I'll press gently just to make it stick. But the main work is going to be done with my rolling pin. Now, I don't want to press so hard on the rolling pin that I change the shape of my slab. I'm just trying to get that texture on there, so I don't need to press super hard. I'm not rolling out a slab at this point, it's already rolled out. I'm just going just hard enough to get the texture to show up on that clay. I'll go in this direction as well, but you don't need to press very hard. Okay, now before I peel the mat up completely, I'm gonna just peel it up halfway to make sure I got the texture on there pretty well. Is there anywhere I need to press a little harder? The reason I don't peel it up all the way is I can always lay it back down and roll again if necessary. I also am going to check this side. It looks pretty good, so I can peel this up, and let me zoom in. You can see my texture on my slab. Now, I don't want my fingers to mess up the texture while I'm working with the slab. And rather than have to fight with this soft clay, what I'll do is I'll take it over and I'm gonna put it in front of the fan for 15-20 minutes. You could also put it in a bag and leave the bag open overnight so it dries slowly. I just want the clay to stiffen up. I don't want it to dry out completely. But if it's too soft, I'm gonna mush the texture, which is not what I want. So I'm gonna take this and go put it in front of the fan, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to assemble. All right, and we're back. I've let my slab with my texture sit. I actually let it sit overnight in an open bag. So now it's stiffer than it was before. It still has some flexibility, but it's much stiffer than it was before. And it's ready for me to attach to my base. Now, while I was rolling the texture onto the slab, my edges are not quite as straight as they were before. So the first thing I want to do is recut anywhere, or at least the bottom, where it's not totally straight. So I'm going to use my ruler or my straight edge, and I'm just going to cut right along the bottom, making sure that I have a nice straight edge while I'm attaching to my base. I've got my slip here, and I'm ready to put this guy together. So I want to be very careful not to squeeze it. I don't want to mess up the texture I've applied. I'm going to be very careful in flipping it over. I'm going to be attaching around the bottom, or on the sides of this disc. So I'm going to score down here at the bottom and score the sides of my base disc. Again, always being very careful not to damage any of my texture, just being gentle, but letting the clay stiffen up overnight has made a big difference in being able to handle it without damaging it. But that's pretty good. Now you might have to go back in. You can see I've got some cracking along here. You might have to go back in and gently smooth some things. Just be very careful not to damage your texture. So go in and smooth. You could use a sponge or a wet paintbrush. This slab might have been a little drier than I would have liked, but I can definitely go in and fix these things. So there you go. There is my textured cup. Now obviously I did not get the texture to match up just perfect right here. It's just the way the pattern came out. So this would probably be where I put my handle so that that wouldn't be very visible. So sometimes you've got to work with the way the object turned out. And again, just because I've got a texture on here and I've got a base on it, just because it's the start of a cup doesn't mean I'm done. I'd keep going, keep cleaning up, making it look nice, and but that's how you use the texture mats. So I hope you'll give that a try, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Look through the examples, and we'll see you in class.
Don't fight with the seam where the slabs come together. Add detail. You can accent your texture using glazes, and cut out more complex shapes after adding the texture. You can apply texture just to portions of your piece instead of the whole surface. Cut out your texture slabs and apply them as decoration. You can also apply texture to one area and not another.